One of the questions we ask people is how they understand the idea of being a caregiving family. And we ask them to think about how that is something that is a description of a whole family, and how that might be something that you think of in terms of one group of people or even an individual who is a caregiver and another person who is a care receiver.
Taking care of others when we can't take care of ourselves, so there's a sense of undefined or blurred boundaries within ourselves. And then there's also blurred boundaries within the family and within our professional relationships. So again, a common theme was the ability to have empathy for others and give out to others in a caring relationship where we weren't able to do that for ourselves.
I think about it as like a finite. When you think of the term caregiver and care receiver, you think about it as like a one-to-one relationship. And it's very finite, so it's you and that one person. And I think that's containing in a way, so I actually think about that terminology as if it's in a negative way. And that's sort of the discussion that we had, that when you think about it, that one-to-one relationship, it can be just negative.
There's a family which is given, and there's a family by choice, the community of support. And in that, every caregiver is also care receiver. And in short term, things are different. In long term, things are very different. And the way we view at giving or receiving impacts our mental health also, whether we are receiver or giver. So we thought we should use the term care sharing.
I think when we look at caregiver, care receiver, especially in the context of mental illness, we have it wrong a lot of the time. I think that nobody should ever be a caregiver or a care receiver. It is, again, it should be care sharing. And I know that in my relationship and in my family, it always works because my wife knows I'm trying my best, and I know she's trying her best. I support her when I can, she supports me when she can. And in that context, and if you put it like that, mental illness really becomes a secondary factor. We're just supporting each other and helping each other.
As the cafe was going, people were like, wait, I'm not just a caregiver. I also live with a mental illness, but I don't want to be seen as just one-sided. I'm not just a caregiver. I'm not just a care receiver. My identity is dynamic. My experience is dynamic. The box that we're put in, I saw like the light bulb come and say, hey, I've been put in a box by policy, by different, community culture, and I'm more than what this title is. Caregiving is way more complex. Living with a mental illness is so complex, but the conversations are three-dimensional. It's not one-sided.
I have family history of mental health, so I suffer from bipolar 2 myself. My brother suffered from bipolar 1 and took his own life 10 years ago. And my mom is currently suffering from severe depression, anxiety, and psychosis. So I am passionate about doing anything that I can to assist myself and my family, and truly believe that the stigma attached to it is one of the greatest difficulties to overcome. And that the more that we talk about it openly, the more we will have opportunities to bring the population in to help us.
In our family, because my son was diagnosed with a mental illness, it brought mental illness to the forefront of our family, and we began to look at other members of our family to see, is there any other members of the family that may be suffering with the various types of mental health. And through that process, I have found myself to be diagnosed, as well as my daughter to have been diagnosed. So we're all basically just living together happily and helping and supporting each other through whatever comes up, and learning again the resources and where we can get supports and helps when needed.
And we were concerned about labeling caregiver and care receiver. It's very singular. It's a negative, positive connotations, but we love the caregiving family because family's anything that you think it is, right? If I have a great psychiatrist for my daughter, they're part of my family, darn right they are, and they can come to dinner whenever they like. So, and it's more holistic. It's a circle. It shows that you're not always a caregiver. You're not always a receiver. Sometimes you're taking on the role of both, and everybody gets a turn of that. So we don't want to say somebody's a care receiver and negate their good day that they're having, because then why are they going to bother having a good day if we're not going to celebrate those, if we're not going to be able to recharge from their energy of that? So that's what we thought is more of a holistic. We understand the labels are there for policy for numerous reasons and to access services. Sometimes you have to be labeled. But as far as we're concerned, caregiving family just demonstrates that it's not one person in each role. It's a circle, not a box.
Families play a really important role in guiding service providers, in guiding policymakers, in guiding service provisions. Families are the experts. Families know their loved one more than anyone else does. Families have seen changes from onset of mental illness to present. They can certainly explain what they have seen work and what does not work in the care of their loved one. And families are also affected themselves, so they can also let service providers know and policymakers know what is helpful for them and for the individual who has mental health concerns. But in addition to that, I think that families can certainly help us to start thinking about getting out of an individually focused treatment model, which is really how our services are structured. And they start at the policy level and trickle down to the actual services. So families can certainly help push us to start broadening our lens, as well as the services and policies that go along with that, to think really about families and even communities and how we can service larger systems and not just an individual on their own.